God, oh, this makes me so nervous. I'm afraid I'm gonna like say something wrong, or people are gonna be like, you're not supposed to interact with readers, and I don't know, I don't have a choice. You people at me about these things. You ask me these questions on Twitter, so I'm just trying to like do the right thing. Okay? You would do this too. If you were in my shoes, which are actually, they're actually fuzzy pink slippers, you would do the same thing. Well, okay. Hello. Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Sala, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be doing a Q&A on Reverie. So if you don't know, Reverie is my first book. It came out on December 3rd, 2019, so it's coming up on a year, and I thought a really fun thing to do would be to answer questions that I get a lot. Also, Reverie was the big library read for this season. What that means is that like participating libraries literally all over the world made Reverie available for download with like no holds or anything like that for I think like a lot of November. And the result is that like many thousands of people started reading Reverie at the same time, like this like global book club format basically. So there's a discussion board because of this, and instead of like lurking like a total like creepy author and like responding to posts on this, I figured like the more appropriate thing to do would be to take like my favorite questions and my favorite comments and respond to them here. And my god, some of these questions. Now, before I get to the fun stuff, I just want to remind you guys that I am trying to make it big on YouTube, so if you could like subscribe and like tell people about it and like comment, that would be great. Also, I recently just launched a podcast with another author, Claribel Ortega, who many of you would know from Ghost Squad. It's a middle grade title, came out this year from Scholastic. The podcast is called Celebrity Book Club, and basically we are tackling like the really crazy books that celebrities are allowed to write because like people apparently don't say no to them. And we're starting with Model Land, which is a fantasy book written by Tyra Banks. It is as like crazy as you think it is. Anyhow, I will leave links for that down below, but you guys should definitely subscribe because it's very funny. Oh, actually, wait, sorry. There will be spoilers at the end of this. I'll put the timestamp down below for when like the spoilers begin, but the first part of this, no spoilers whatsoever. Oh my god. Okay. Question number 1. How do you become so descriptive? Desperation, really. I just want to be understood. I think Reverie is sort of very flowery, but that's also Kane's like point of view, right? He's like a very like interior person, and like his inner voice, I would say, is like very like flowery language. And so I think like the descriptiveness in Reverie is like partly me always sort of making an effort to kind of describe things really visually, because I'm pretty visual when it comes to my writing, but it's also like the way that Kane sees the world. How did you get the ideas? Stole them from dreams. Have you played the Persona games? I have now played part of Persona 5. I hadn't played it like while writing Reverie. I hadn't heard about it. It was only after I put out the book that everyone like showed up in my mentions and they were like, it's so clear how much you love the Persona games because you basically novelize them. And I was like, who's Persona? Finally, like after Reverie was published, I found time to download one of the games this year, and I can see the similarity, although I like can't get into Persona. It's like too much like making coffee and like reading books and things like this, like tasks that are like tedious. I don't know, people are gonna like come for me for this. I will finish the game eventually. I totally see the similarity between the two things. I had not played it prior to writing Reverie. This one's in all caps. What made you write and share this story? I say this all the time, spite. I wrote the book out of spite when I was like in high school, or I should say I started then, basically because I was like, I don't like all this like YA stuff that's being handed to me. There's no gay people in it. It's not fun. There's no like, you know, explosive magic or anything like that. So I'm gonna write that into my own book. So spite. Spite is really the thing that like motivated me to start this book. And then when I got a lot of no's from like the publishing world, because of course like no one wanted to like publish this like anime garbage fire of a book, and thank god they didn't. It did need some editing, but as I got those no's, it just like, I don't know, made me more determined to actually see it through, because I was like, I know what I'm doing, like I'm a good writer, like this deserves to be out there. So spite. This one's also in caps and it just says, you sound cool. It's a lie. Okay. How do you make good books like this? Don't laugh. This is a good question. Good books, in my experience, for me, come from a lot of collaboration. And I don't mean you're necessarily sharing your ideas with people or like writing hand in hand with somebody else. What I mean is that like you as a writer, you do your best job, you write your best draft and you work on that draft, but then you open that up for criticism from people that you trust and from people whose feedback you value. And then eventually, you know, you have an agent and you've got an editor and you've got to be ready to work hand in hand with those people. You even have people in like the marketing staff of a publishing house. And their goal, everyone's goal is to make your book as good as possible. And so if you understand that, and if you find the right people who like resonate with you at like an artistic level, I think it's fair to say that, you know, it is a collaborative process. And so when you read like a book that you feel like is like really good, oftentimes that's the culmination of many people, including the author, but besides the author, putting like their hard work and artistry into making that book good. I feel like that made sense. Did that make sense? I don't know. Oh my god, I love this one. I'm gonna leave the person's name out. Hi, my name is Kane Montgomery, and I was just a thing how... Oh my god, what? I think what it's supposed to say is, I was just thinking, did you think up this story? It's great, I love this book, and then we transition into caps. It's so cool, I read it 5 times. I love it. When I need you to calm down, I read this book, it's great. You are good at writing. Honestly, this made my day when I read it, and every time I read it, it like makes me happy to read, so thank you to this person. I don't know if there was a question in there, but thank you. This is great. I listened to this as an audiobook, and I enjoyed it. I wish I could say I enjoyed it very much, but I didn't. Kane bothered me. Look, honey, you're not alone. A lot of people are put off by Kane's attitude, and I get it. Like he even like acknowledges this. I think it's in like chapter 2 where he's like, I'm like gloomy and brittle, and like people don't like me. Like he says that outright. I said that outright. But I will say, I feel like a lot of the criticism people have of Kane, like, I don't know. I think it comes out of like a lack of empathy for people like Kane, and that is, I know, a charged statement. Some people I can just tell are like about to like email me. But I do think that like a lot of the people that love Kane have a really similar or like shared experience with him, and they can understand how someone like that, even someone that young, may come to be or have that like that worldview, right? And what's interesting to me is that like a lot of people are like, Kane bothered me, but I love Posey. But they're really similar in a lot of ways. I don't know, it makes me think like maybe I should write like a Posey prequel or something like that. I feel like people would like it a lot more. This comment just says, I think more people should read more Warrior Cats and Wings of Fire. Okay. This is great. I felt like Posey was an offshoot of Dr. Frankenfurter from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. During this entire book, I just kept thinking of Tim Curry as Posey. I love the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I love Dr. Frankenfurter. I understand that, you know, not everything's right about that portrayal, but for me, when I was in like college, I loved going to that show and I loved that movie, and it was just, you know, it was fun. But the best part of this is someone replied to this and they said, what a wonderful connection. I absolutely love Rocky Horror Picture Show, and Tim Curry was my first sexual crush. Oh, that's so good. Tim Curry, man. Yeah, I see it. Him as the butler? I'm like low-key attracted to everyone in Clue though. Except Colonel Mustard. Okay, this comment says, A+ for use of simile and metaphor throughout the entire novel. Your teachers surely are proud. I couldn't tell you what a simile or a metaphor was. I think like they have to do with the word like or than, but you're giving me too much credit. Okay, this is, I'm surprised that a book set in Amity, Connecticut never mentions the Amityville Horror. Can I tell you? So the book is set in East Amity. I thought that was a made-up place. And after the book came out, people from Amity Regional High School reached out to me. I thought I made that high school up. So, learn from me, do your research, like Google everything in your book, or you're gonna be mighty embarrassed. Okay, so now I'm going to answer the questions that people sent me that include like spoilers of any sort. So if you haven't read the book or you're reading it or whatever, now would be a good time to stop. Come back later. Okay. By far, the most common question that I think people have at the end of Reverie is what happened to Posey and how did Dean stick around after Posey's defeat? So actually both of these questions I think have the same answer. Okay, so at the end of Reverie, Kane does not kill Posey. Kane takes Posey and sort of crushes her into a charm form. And we've seen this done a bunch of times, right? Like Posey has all of these charms. Even when they're in charm form, they still sort of exert power, like the whistle, for instance. And the result of Posey being turned into a charm and not, totally unraveled and killed is that the things that Posey maintained through her own power are also not unraveled. So that includes Dean. Dean is a person that was born in a reverie, right? He was born in a reverie. We don't know which reverie, or whose reverie, I should say, Dean was born into. We only know that Posey intervened on his behalf, sort of took him out of this really bad reverie and sort of has, kept him around and tethered to her because of that obligation. And Dean even says himself a little bit earlier in the ending that like he feels at a really instinctual level that like if Posey is to be killed, which he thinks is necessary, that it'll kill him too. So we know that Kane makes a choice not to kill Posey based upon the fact that he wants to salvage Dean. However, what we also know at the ending is that Kane has just sort of given this huge output of power, and that's probably going to result in like many more reveries, right? And it also means that, anybody who is sustained by Etheria and Etheria alone, so like Dean, they probably are for a time going to be safe within like this environment that's like highly ethereally charged. So all this to say that there's a few different explanations as to why like Dean sticks around in the end. I think from Kane's point of view, it's because he chose not to kill Posey and to sort of keep Posey and therefore Posey's legacy intact somehow. But there are a few like reader theories, and I'm not gonna say that those are incorrect because, they could be true. I guess we're just gonna have to see. I love this question. Why haven't deadly sharpened ballet shoes made it into the mainstream yet? And this is in reference to the bladed ballet slippers that Adeline wears, or I should say is like forced to wear in like the finale. And the reason that they haven't made it into the mainstream yet is homophobia. It's homophobia. Homophobia. The same person that has asked, similarly, which character would fare the best in a Saw movie crossover? I hate this. Oh my god, I hate this. It's gonna be Adeline. She's the toughest one among them. Everyone's like Ursula's the tough one, and that's absolutely not true. Like Ursula's the strongest one, but Adeline's absolutely the toughest. And if there's anybody that's gonna get out of like a psychological trap, it's absolutely Adeline. Kane's favorite anime. So I included this in the spoiler section. You'll see why. Kane's favorite anime absolutely would be like Madoka Magica, or like Magical Girl Madoka, depending on like what you know it as, but specifically because like it has to do with these like labyrinthine like witches barriers, like their layers, which are like very Reverie like. A lot of people have like matched those two things up, which I think is so flattering. I love this show. But also like Madoka's role in it as sort of like the nexus of a lot of this like fate and potential, and sort of like the final moments when she like gets like super magical and has like the flowing dress and the hair and the wings. Like that's like Kane. That's what I had in mind when I was writing sort of like Kane's final moments. This big like magical girl upgrade that's like undeniable, and like I have like chills talking about this. I love magical girl anime. What is Kane's S word? This is a great question, and this is a close reader. So in the diner scene, like when Kane first encounters the others, they all have like an S word, right? And these words are used to sort of describe their role or their function in the group. So for instance, Ursula is the strength, Elliot is the strategy, Adeline I think is the security. Oh my god, is that true? I forget. Hold on, I have to check. It's this chapter right here, the S word. Oh my god, no, I'm so wrong. Okay, so security, strategy, and soldier are the three that we know. So security is Adeline. She's the one that makes sure that they're secure and sort of, make sure that like no one discovers them. Elliot's the strategy because he's able to make sure that they've always got a plan. He's able to sort of maneuver them in and out of the reveries. And of course, Ursula's the soldier. She's the strong one. So this is, I think, either I never put it in or it got like edited out, but it's not in the book. Kane's S word, according to the others, would probably be something like solution, right? Because he's the one that comes in at the very end of the reveries after a lot of like the work's been done, and he's the one that like represents like the solve, right? He unravels everything. But Kane's actual S word, the one that I had in mind when writing, is that he is the source. He's the source of the theory. He's the one that's sort of producing this power that is causing the reveries, the source of the reveries themselves. Okay. Did you consider other primary antagonists other than the one you chose? Yeah, they're, this is hard to answer. So Posey was always going to be sort of the main antagonistic force in Reverie. However, what I will say about Posey is that, yes, from like a structural point of view, she operates as the antagonist of this book, but I think by the end of it, hopefully the reader has learned what Kane has learned, and that's like Posey is somebody who is very similar to him, the hero, but who's been driven to unscrupulous means to achieve maybe what would have been a noble goal. And therefore, I don't really think of Posey as like someone who is purely antagonistic, right? I don't think of her as villainous and evil in the really classical way. I think of her as someone who's like absolutely terrifying and absolutely like condemnable in the actions that she takes, but ultimately like the philosophy that drives her, right, is not necessarily evil. It's actually like the thesis to a lot of like Kane's belief in the power of dreams and how they can save people. So all of this is to say basically that like, yeah, Kane's like the good person, and Posey sort of ended up as like the antagonist in this particular bout, right? This particular battle. But in the larger like Reverie universe, there are definitely people that I think would be considered absolutely like evil and absolutely the antagonist. And if I had many, many more words that I could have sort of included in this, I think we would have eventually gotten there or gotten to them. And my hope is that, you know, if I ever continue it or sort of expand the Reverie universe, I'll get to introduce these other people. But it did sort of cross my mind in really, really early versions of it, if I wanted to sort of make Posey an enemy to an ally type of situation and install sort of like a bigger like evil person at the end of it. But I maintain that Posey is sort of the right person to stand across from Kane and have the conversation that I was trying to have in Reverie, in just this standalone book, okay? Does Posey fan art exist? So yeah, actually, hold on. I think one of them, there's like some Posey, yeah, I don't know if you can see like right here, a reader named Fred went ahead and sent that to me, and it's awesome. I should post it. Whew. Okay, and those are the questions. So thank you so much for asking them. It has been so much fun getting to sort of answer all of these like nitty gritty, like hyper small details that I never thought anyone was gonna notice about my book. I feel really grateful that I'm in a position to crowdsource questions about my debut book. Truthfully, I think every writer sort of dreams of people nitpicking like the very small, tiny details and asking the why behind them. And so to have an opportunity to like talk about the why for some of these creative choices that I made with a lot of intention, or in some cases like totally by accident, it's great. It's a really lovely privilege. So thank you. If you've got more questions, I'll definitely keep doing these so long as sort of people keep asking me questions. And for anyone just discovering me, I hope that you read Reverie. I hope that you forget everything that you just heard, and I hope you just read it for the first time and form all of your own impressions. Lastly, I just want to remind you guys that I've got another book coming out, Bedazzled, on January 5th, 2021, and I'll include a link down below, but if you could pre-order this, it would be so helpful. So Bedazzled is not a Reverie continuation, it's actually a contemporary romance, totally different world, different story, and it's about arts and crafts and cosplay. It's about two ex-boyfriends basically like dealing with their broken relationship at a competitive arts and crafts competition. So I don't even know what to say. I hope people like this. All right. Thanks, guys. Bye. Mwah. Woo.